Hello everyone and welcome back to the Benchwarmers Podcast. As usual, I'm joined by my co-host Josh Sykes.
It's good to be here again, Gal.
And this week we are delighted to welcome former Spennymoor Town manager, Jason Ainsley. Sorry, I completely lost it there. Jason Ainsley.
I'll tell you what, you're soon forgotten about, and when you leave management, aren't you?
Since you've been out of management, we've just completely lost you right there. Jason, how are you?
I'm all right, mate. Yeah, thank you. I was all right, but he forgot my name. I feel like just stopping the video now and just walking out.
That's never happened before. I'm sorry. It's just been a long day, I guess. You know.
What's somebody walking out?
I'm obviously correct. Straight on with this then. As you mentioned before, you had quite an established playing career. I mean, played from England to India to Australia. I think you said before, but I believe your main sort of career was at Hartlepool United.
Yeah, I mean, well, I played at Spennymoor when I was 18. Funny enough, and then I was one of the presidents who's actually a president now. He wanted me on a contract. There was a few clubs that were looking at me, and before your time, lads, he offered me a car. So I had a sponsored Ford Orion gear, injection gear, that he gave me, and he paid for me insurance. So I was flying about in that, and Spennymoor were actually in the Northern League, I think, at the time.
I wish someone would pay for my car.
Yeah, I think I was on 20 quid a week in a contract, and anyway, so Hartlepool came in for us, and then I ended up having to go to a tribunal at Lytham St Anne's in Blackpool way. You know, and it was awful because Spennymoor, who was sort of they bought us a car and everything like that. They were trying to fight out a fee with Hartlepool, and eventually I went there, and the less said about that, the better. Really, I did all right in training, but in the games I was awful. I mean, my highlight was we played Arsenal at Highbury, so that was good. Yeah. You know, I think there was about 30,000 there, so that was a good. And we got beat 2-0. I won't tell you we got beat 5-0 in the replay in the second leg, so I'll leave it at the first leg. We did all right in the first leg, 2-0. And I mean, the story about Hartlepool, I was going to sign for Middlesbrough. I'd been training with Middlesbrough for a while and playing for the reserves. And Lenny Lawrence was the manager, and there was me and Craig Little, a lad who's at Middlesbrough now. He runs the academy. Yeah. And we were training and trialling, and then Hartlepool were in for me, and they offered us a little bit of money in my hand, and I was thinking, now, as a young lad, you think, oh well, a bit of money in my hand. There was nothing concrete from Middlesbrough, and then Brian Robson came in, and Middlesbrough was saying that they were going to offer us a year's deal, and so was Hartlepool. So I was obviously definitely desperate to go to Middlesbrough at the time. And then Brian Robson came in and sort of said, well, we'll do 3 months, you know, because I haven't seen you. And Craig Little took the 3 month, and I think that I decided to go to Hartlepool, and the rest history, really. He signed another 4-year deal after that. Not to say that would have happened, but you know, you sort of your fate sort of sealed. And you know, I enjoyed Hartlepool at the time, but I had probably more talent than what I was probably too much of a daft lad, if you like, you know what I mean, and didn't really take things serious. I was living with a lad called Jamie Pollock, if you remember him. Do you remember Jamie? Him? No, you won't remember. I Googled him. He was at Man City and Bolton, played for England under 21s, but he was playing at Middlesbrough at the time. So we were living together, and obviously, you know, having a bit of a daft time and things like that. So my football sort of, I would say I had the ability, but I didn't have the right mindset at the time.
Yeah. So what actually happened after Hartlepool then? So obviously you said you went abroad. So what happened after Hartlepool? Like, what's the story?
Yeah, so the story is I get a phone call from, I was still playing for Hartlepool. I had a couple of months left in my contract, and then an agent rang me and he says, there's a club in Australia, Western Australia, wants to sign you. And I mean, I think 22, 23, something like that. And I'm thinking, oh, God, the other side of the world. But then he said, you get your own house, you get your own car. And going from like League 3, it was at the time, Division 3, going from there to something like that, I thought, well, it was a no-brainer. I had no ties, if you like, at home. And the manager of the club was from Middlesbrough. So that was a help. And I knew, you know, I got a phone call from one of the players who was from Spennymoor. So he was waxing lyrical about the football club and saying that the standards getting better and better. And it was just before the A-League kicked in. It was so I went over there, and I had a lovely house. The car was like a rucksack, it was an automatic. It was horrendous, but it got me from A to B. It was good, and it was funny because it wasn't a full-time club at the time. So the team was called Inglewood Falcons, and they were owned by two Russian guys, and the Russian, but they had a big building company. So I'd never worked in my life really. So he said, your money will pay, we'll pay your rent and everything like that. We'll pay the car. He said, but if you want to live, there's 5 days of work here, and then you'll get paid for your football as well. So I remember going the first day at work, and it was like, obviously Australia was red hot at the time, and we used to have to load all the plasterboards onto the truck and cornices and all these, my hands were killing me. And we used to drive to these new houses, and if it was built on sand, then we couldn't obviously drive the truck into the houses, so we had to walk for miles. So it was so me 5 days a week ended 4 days a week, 3 days a week, and I just thought, sod that, I'm not working. So I just lived off my football money, which wasn't great at the time, but I did really well. I got selected for the for Western Australia Select 11, and we played against West Ham and Notts Forest at the Wacker, the big cricket ground in Perth.
Yeah.
And we had lads before your time, lad called Stan Lazaridis, who played a winger in Australia, and he ended up signing for West Ham after that game, and had a really successful career. A lad who was at Sheffield United, a lad called Sean Murphy, who had a really good career at Sheffield United. He came from that game as well. So it was a decent standard, and we. I was fortunate to win when they called it the fairest and best. I wouldn't win it now in terms of fairest, because I'm always getting in trouble off the referee. So it was like the Player of the Year, Western Australia Player of the Year. So I won that, and it was great. I had an unbelievable year, great success, and then I came home, and the manager of the club, he'd been approached by. It was when all the Asian leagues were kicking off, where like the Chinese league, the Malaysian league, the Japanese league. And there was a team in Singapore that that he went to manage, and he said, "Come out there," He said, and I was married at the time then, and I said, "Oh, I'm married." He said, "No, I'll bring the family." So I spent 4 years out in Singapore. I had an absolute unbelievable time. But again, I was lucky because the manager liked me. He liked me from the time in Australia. And the first year I was in Singapore, I did okay, but nothing special. There was a lot far better players than me, and I wasn't properly fit. The humidity was killing me. I remember a lot of other. Grant Holt was out there. Yeah. So I was out there, and then I was living. It was a lovely accommodation, but it was sort of in was not so much a council area, but when I seen all the other foreigners' houses for other clubs, they were all living in these condominiums with big swimming pools and tennis courts, and we were like sort of like the Wimbledon, if you like, of the S League. And so we were like living like tramps. And it was when I said the houses were like nice, but it was like not to what the others were in. So anyway, it was funny because I did all right, nothing great, and I thought that would be my end. We finished about 6th in the league, and the manager said, "I want to offer you another year," which I was surprised at. And then I came home in the summer with my wife and the kids. And I got myself really fit. And I went back out there, and it was mad because they just had a new ownership from a Chinese guy, World Shipping Organisation, which he moved the ground, which was a brilliant, lovely little ground we went to. And in pre-season, I was scoring for fun, from midfield. I was hitting them, one of them where if you hit them from 25 yards, they were flying in the top corners and things like that. And he was all over me, the chairman. And I said, look, can you sort me out with some different accommodation? And so I spent, so he did, and I lived in this beautiful accommodation with condominium in Geelong East with my family, with a maid. I had everything for 3 years, and I did really well out there. And it was mad because I could have got my permanent residency and stayed out there and represented Singapore. Like there was another English lad out there who did the same. But my wife's dad wasn't very well, and so we came back home, and then the rest is history. So I spent 4 years out in the Far East, and it was unbelievable time.
Would you recommend to younger players then to go to foreign country and maybe try build a career there?
Definitely, like I said, I mean, I was an average third division player, probably bags of talent, but wasn't, didn't, like you say, utilise that. But there's the academies now are very, very false. I think, because you see they'll play under 20s, under 19s, and it's not proper football in terms of when they come out of that environment. If they get released, and it's a sad occasion for any player to get released from a football club, when they come out of that, they're not used to men's football. They sort of look down at it, and they look down at the National League and National League North level, or even the Northern Premier League, where there's some really good players in these leagues, and they don't, they're not used to these. Imagine, I mean, I'll say from until this year, Spennymoor's pitch was horrendous over the last few years. You can't imagine them coming there on a Tuesday night and think, oh God, what's this? Because they're used to carpets and in Premier League grounds. So it's definitely an experience that that I would certainly recommend for young lads. I mean, you just have to look. There's a lad who I had at Spennymoor, a lad called Curtis Edwards, who was, and his dad's a good friend of mine. He wasn't in a great place. He'd been released from other clubs, and he wasn't doing really well at Spennymoor. He had a couple of decent games, but he didn't set the world alight. He went over to Sweden and ended up playing for Östersunds, and he's flying, and he played against Arsenal, and was brilliant. So it just shows you, a change of environment, getting away from your so-called mates. If I'd have done it earlier, I probably might have made it a little bit better. But like you say, who's to say? But I'd certainly recommend it.
Yeah. So how old were you at your end of your spell in Singapore?
I would say, I think I was 30, 31. I think I went there, like I say, I think about 28 and spent 4 years there, 31. And then it was funny because every time I kept coming back, so the season would be 9 months. So I'd be allowed to come back and play over here. So I would either go and play for Spennymoor or Bishop Auckland or Gateshead or Blythe, for that sort of 3 month spell, and then I'd fly back. It was mad, and Spennymoor's. I've been affiliated with Spennymoor since I was 17-year-old, and I've formed player captain, assistant manager, coach, manager, so I've always sort of gone back there, if you like, and then I came back from Singapore, and I started to work into the schools, going and doing some sports development, going and doing the PE lessons for the teachers, if you like.
Yeah.
And then came of that, I started in a school, and I've spent the last sort of 19 years in pastoral, head of pastoral at schools.
Yeah. So
So
after Singapore, what happened in your career then? Was that the end of your playing career? Did you go into coaching then?
No, good question. I came back to Spennymoor, and I was playing for them. I was still playing, and I was playing for our chairman at the time, Brad Groves. Well, he's still the chairman at Spennymoor, and he's a big friend of mine. He had this Sunday team called Hetton Lions, and this just sums the chairman up. I mean, he was the managing director of First Sport at the time, Black's Leisure, which was in Peterlee. So all the team got, like, we had the best kits, we had the best boots, we had the best, we would trek like kings for a Sunday morning. So we had the pick of the players from the northeast, if you like. They were playing on a Sunday morning, and then so I was playing for Spennymoor. Jamie Pollock was the manager at the time. He was a friend of mine. I got him in as manager. I was his assistant. We got Spennymoor Town was had just been sort of formed then, because they'd gone bust. Spennymoor United had gone bust, so we had to start again. And he got us promoted from the Northern League Second Division. I think probably 2005. I think 2006, and then he left, and I became manager of Spennymoor, and I was manager there and playing for Hetton Lions for the chairman. So I was bringing him little players, and I was bringing him some of the lads who played for Spennymoor, and the team that we played for, Hetton Lions, we ended up winning the FA Sunday Cup at Anfield four times. So it was a brilliant team, and he was working away. Then the chairman was working for John Caldwell at the time for Phones for You. He was one of his big guys in Crewe. So I was sort of running the team at Hetton Lions. So I've been affiliated with him for about 20 odd years, and then it came to a point where I think we got the last 16 of the FA Vase for Spennymoor, and we'd been drawn against Bideford Town in Devon, and the chairman at the time said, he said, Jason, we're going to have to forfeit the tie because we can't afford to travel. So I phoned the chairman, obviously your master, and I said, so we can't go to the. So he sorted we got the Newcastle team coach. He put a hotel on for us, and then he sort of started looking after the players that were involved with Spennymoor, who were affiliated with Hetton Lions. He started looking after their sort of wages, So it took a bit of a burden off Spennymoor at the time, and then he said it's the worst decision he's ever made, meeting me, because then I got him into Spennymoor Town as with a guy called Billy Beasley, who was a big figurehead of the football club. I set up a meeting with him and Brad, and the rest's history, if you like. He's took the club from strength to strength since then.
So do you actually have any coaching badges in terms of becoming a manager?
Yeah, I went just my B. I got my B, and then I didn't go after that because I was getting on at the time. I was working in a school which I was loving, so I didn't go through that. I'm one of these probably the older ones who now you didn't sort of need your A licenses and things like that. It was all about what you did on the field in terms of management and things like that. But if I could start again, you need your qualifications. And I'm a big believer you never stop learning.
Yeah. So let's talk about your time, obviously, managing Spennymoor. So you were there for 14 years, and at the time you left, you were the longest serving manager in the top 7 leagues in England, I believe.
Yeah, that's true. I think it was Arsene Wenger was one of them before, and I was over the moon when he left because it put me up the ladder a little bit. So, no, I think I've done over 750 games. I think 14 and a half years, and it was a big wrench to leave, to be honest. And like I said, I've had many highs and equally as many lows in that time. It's a lonely place at times as being a manager.
Yeah, well, we've got some of your highs here. Obviously, your 11 trophies. We've got 4 Northern League titles, 4 Cleater Cups, a Northern League Cup, a Durham Challenge Cup, and famously the FA Vase. So
yeah, no, it was good.
Yeah, so the FA Vase, talk to us about that, because is that like the highlight in terms of your silverware?
Well, I've said this on many interviews that I've had, many podcasts. The FA Vase at the time was the holy grail of North-East football, because Whitley Bay at the time, they'd won it 3 years on the trot. I think Dunstan had been and won it or whatever. I think somebody else in the North-East had won it. So it was a real bombshell for Spennymoor, because if we got knocked out, it was like, we were expected to go far in that competition, and there was a couple of years that it didn't happen. And Darlington had come into the cup, they were obviously in and around that at the time, because they'd folded and come back, and they were getting massive support. So the expectation from everybody, around the country in Spennymoor was for Spennymoor to emulate what the other North East teams had done on sort of with lesser players, if you like. And that's not being disrespectful, but Spennymoor had we'd built a really good side that needed to go to the sort of the latter stages of the competition. And 2013, we'd had a real good run, and we got to the semi-final, and we played Guernsey. So we had to, obviously the semi-finals are home and away, so we had to fly. We had to fly to Guernsey on the day before the game. So we get to Newcastle Airport, and the Flyby sign was up, Spennymoor Town FC. So you felt like brilliant. You felt like a Premier League club, getting your own chartered flight to Guernsey. Mm. So we flies there, and I remember getting there on the Friday night, and it was absolutely teeming down. We get to the bus and get to the hotel, beautiful hotel in Guernsey. And on the Saturday morning, myself and the management team, we got early, and it was beautiful, sunny day. And we walked to the ground, and it was just a vibe. They were queuing for tickets from about 10 o'clock in the morning. Oh, wow. And there was about 3,500 there, whatever, from Guernsey. I mean, what a place that is! It was unbelievable. They all had the green and white scarves, and we goes down to the ground to have a look at it on the morning. And one of the stewards, he said, "Are you the manager?" And I said, "Oh yeah." He said, "Oh, you might want to come in." So we went into the ground, and all we could see was this helicopter, literally 10 metres above the centre circle trying to disperse all the water because the game was going to be off.
Oh.
And we're like, I'm going to say, we're in Guernsey. We've got a flight due home tomorrow. If this game's off, what's going to happen? And it was like a mud bath, you know. And they were a top side, a great manager, and they had a lad called Alan up front who scored a load of goals. I think he's still playing for them now, you know. And it was surreal because it was beamed back to Spennymoor because Guernsey had their own TV channel and it was shown live there. And for Spennymoor, so all the pubs in Spennymoor were allowed to show it. So it was kicked off. We kicked off, I think, a bit. No, sorry, I think we kicked off at the same time, but it had to get beamed back to Spennymoor. So we won 3-1, and it was like a brilliant occasion, brilliant night. And then I think we won the replay, the second leg 2-0 away at our place. So that was probably the most enjoyable of any of the rounds, because the final, as a manager, we were sort of not expected to win, but we were heavy favourites to win, you know, and obviously the pressure that goes with that. We couldn't have asked for a better team to play because Tunbridge Wells had brought about 13,000 fans, with it being near London. We took, I think, 7, so there was nigh on 20,000 at Wembley, and it was just, as is always the cup finals, it was a stifling hot day, and we were playing all right, and we went 1-0 up and we were comfortable. And then they scored the equaliser after about 78 minutes, and I'm thinking, oh my God, here we go. And then we scored the winner with about 8 minutes to go, and it was like sort of a relief, you know. And like I said, you go to bed on the night, read all your messages, and I was just drained. The chairman we all stopped in the Hilton Hotel, which is over the road, and he'd hired the Sky Bar for us all. So we're all up there and having a great time, and free bar and everything like that. And I said to Joanne, my wife, I said, I'm just shattered. It was just draining, you know what I mean? Because you were sort of expected to win that game. It was more of a relief more than an ecstatic, you know. So, but it's there in the record books now. So it was one of them where if you were in the North East and you hadn't won it, you'd be disappointed.
Yeah, that season in general turned out to be quite successful, obviously. In the same year, you had the biggest ever home attendance for Spennymoor, which had 2,670 hosting Darlington. How good of seeing that club grow from a team in a real low division, taking it all the way up there? How good was it to see so many fans coming to watch play?
Brilliant question. I was there in the dark. Well, I say dark days. It was the norm then. You know, 100, 150s, whatever, 200s at Spennymoor, 300s, whatever, and then. To grow so quick and so, you know, and saying that, I mean, Darlington, you know, are a fantastic football club and a well-established club, and you know, and a club that were a football league for many years. So they've got a real top fan base and hostile, real, you know. And I don't think they like the fact that, you know, the little town of 17,000 as it was then. I think it's a population of about 20,000 now. We were coming on the up, if you like. Spennymoor were on the up, and we were trying to catch up with them, and they seemed to be always one step ahead of us because they'd get promoted before us, and then we'd go the next year, then the next year, and so on. But them days of the Northern League, they had sort of a real hoodoo on me. We'd play quite well against them and always get beat, and it was one of me real bugbears that we could never ever get over the line against them, because they were so to see the ground, like you've just said there, filled to capacity and you know, and rocking. I've never seen nothing like it. But now them sort of crowds have been you know, the norm, if you like now. You know, not so much. I mean, we've been averaging the gates. Last year, I think we averaged gates of 1,200-1,300, but it wasn't uncommon that we'd have 2,000 for the playoff games and things like that. So you know, the Northern League game, and I checked that. I think that's still the highest crowd in terms of every time we played Darlington, whether we played them in the National League North or the Evo Stick or Northern Premier, as you called it. I think that Northern League game was still a record crowd in that sort of in that fixture.
Yeah. So let's go to May 2019. Obviously, the National League North playoff final against Chorley.
Right, I'm off now.
It's a massive achievement, obviously, to get to the playoff final. But you lost on penalties. So how did that feel?
Again, it was surreal because we played Bradford Park Avenue in the sort of the quarter final as it is, and it was a nothing game. You know, big crowd at Spennymoor on a Tuesday night. You know, and I've got the utmost respect for Bradford because they always seem to do all right. You know what I mean? And he always seems to get a good team out of them, and they were a tough nut to crack, and it was a nothing game, real poor quality. And a moment of magic from Lewis Hawkins, who we had on loan at the time. He put one in the top corner from about 25 yards to win it, and we're all ecstatic. And you're sort of ecstatic for 24 hours because you know what's to come. And we had Brackley away, which is, again, a fantastic club, that a real tough nut to crack. And, you know, you very rarely get anything there. Well, I never do anyway. And we went there on Saturday, possibly, apart from the group of players we had and the management, everybody else on the outside just thought that we were just going to be turning up and Brackley were going to make the final. And it was, again, a game of very few chances, a game that went to extra time and nothing really between the two sides. And then the penalties, I think we missed two. And Leon Love, I think it is, he stepped up to win it for them and skied it over the bar. And then the other lad, and then we had to score again, and we scored, and their lad missed it. So it was fantastic scenes. Like, you know, I mean, we had about 300 supporters down in Brackley, and they were all on the pitch, and it didn't really sink in until you were driving home that you were in the final on the following Sunday, and you know, and again going back to the final, this, you know, to see the ground packed with Spennymoor fans and the coach. I mean, I think we had about 15 coaches down there, and you know what we'd achieved, and it was just it is football. We sort of felt the same emotions as Brackley did in the semi-final, and I just felt our name was on it because they had gone again. The final wasn't great quality, lack of chances, and they've scored with a set piece. And you didn't think we'd, you know, I couldn't see us coming back into the game, that we didn't create anything, and then, as football sometimes happens, Glenn Taylor, who was on fire at the time in that year, he popped up with a goal out of nothing. It took us into extra time and took us into penalties, and they did the sort of same as we did against Brackley. They missed the first two, and I remember saying to me mate, well, it was my captain Chris Mason at the time who was injured. I said to him, I think I'm going to ask for tell school. I'm going to pack in school here. I said, I think I'm going to be going full time, and we just looked and we laughed and we shook each other hand and we cuddled each other. The next minute, we'd missed about three, so we were out of it, you know. And it's sod's law that the players that you put your money on, you put your money on Glenn Taylor, you put your money on Andrew Johnson to score the goals, you know, because they were excellent penalty taking, they were excellent in terms of finishing. They're the ones who sort of missed, and you know that's what made me upset, because it's, you know, yeah, it's sad for me and the club and the chairman, but for lads who sort of missed in the final, you know, they're sort of taking it personally, and they certainly don't need to, because they got us to where we were in that year.
Yeah, in the 2015-16 season, Spennymoor managed to get to the FA Cup first round proper, and they played MK Dons. Am I right in thinking you lost to MK Dons?
Yeah, so again, that was, you know, we played Lincoln United. The club had never got as far as the first round, so that was another monumentous occasion. I think we played Lincoln United, and we won quite comfortably in the fourth qualifying round, and the club was buzzing. And me and Tommy Miller, and my assistant at the time, we went to match of the day. We went up to Salford. They invited us on a match of the day, and we did the draw, and it was honestly, the MK Dons game, what a stadium that is. You know, we were treated brilliantly by the manager and Peter Winkleman, the chairman. I wanted the ground to eat me up, really, because I think it was we started off all right. The first 5 minutes we were all right, and then they scored, I think, 3 in about 10 minutes and hit the post. And I thought it was going to be an absolute, you know, massacre. And I'm looking at Tommy and I'm saying, I just want this ground to open up. We had about 1,000 odd fans in the corner that were singing like hell before the game, and then obviously you could hear a pin drop in the away end. And then we scored. We got one back. Big Joe Tate scored to make it 3-1. And then we scored. Andrew Johnson scored in about the 70th minute to make it 3-2. And I wouldn't say we pummeled them, but we gave them a real good go in the last 15 minutes, and we could have nicked it a draw at the end. And that was another disappointment, because I think if we'd have got a draw, we certainly would have been on the telly in the replay, because they showed that on a Tuesday night at Spennymoor, and that's one of my regrets, really, that we haven't been on live. You know, I'd like to experience that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Gav, have you got anything to add on, obviously, Jason's playing managing career?
I was just intrigued about I've got his name as well. The assistant manager, Tommy Miller. What point did you actually meet him? Because now, obviously, I believe he's still interim manager of Spennymoor and wants the job, he said.
Yeah, so Tommy was at Halifax. So Tommy lives in Stockton, where I do. So I've known Tommy, and he was so laid back. Every time he would ring me and say, "Oh, Spennymoor got a game, I'll come and watch." He was at Halifax. I think he was player, assistant manager, coach, and that. And I kept saying, "Why don't you come and play for me? Come and play." And he always promised me he would, and then he never. And then he would say, "I'll come to have a look round next week," and he never did. And then my assistant manager left. And I said to him, "Look, there's an assistant manager's job here," and he'd left Halifax. They'd just won the trophy, so he'd won that with them. And I said, "Come and have a look." I said, "It's a brilliant club." I said, "The chairman's fantastic." I said, "Whatever you get promised, you get delivered. There's all sorts of things that go on at the club. It's really well run." And that was it. And he came, and he's never looked back. Really, he's been a breath of fresh air. He's done his A license because he's got the time and he doesn't work, so he's sort of coaching full time. He's got his own soccer clinic. So the friendship's bloomed really, and we've worked together for the last 3 years. And he's a really thorough coach. And it's now time that he steps up as a manager, because it's a total. And he keeps saying to me every time I speak to him, it's a totally different ball game being an assistant manager than it is a manager. You don't have to deal with everything that you do as a manager on a day-to-day basis, and he's going to grasp that. But that only, you can only do that on the job, if you like. You can say you're going to be a manager and find out what it all entails, but unless you're in the job, you don't realise what it does entail.
Yeah. So does it take like a certain type of person to be a manager?
I think you learn from every manager that you've been under, whether it's good or bad. I was probably, it was difficult for me at the first, because a lot of the players that I was at, when I became manager of Spennymoor, I was playing with the same lads at Henton Lions, so I brought a lot of them over. So I was having to be a player manager and having to sort of be a bit more disciplinarian in terms of, and I was one of the lads. I was a daft lad on a Sunday morning. I was captain of the football club for the chairman, and I had a really, excellent career for Henton Lions. But when you step over that line, you become their manager. And what I learned over years is you've got to be honest with people, and probably you probably don't want them difficult conversations when you're a younger manager. And I probably was certainly like that. You'd pick a team and you'd probably leave lads out, and you wouldn't explain the reasons why, because it was tough call. It was a tough conversation to have. But I think as you get older, you become used to it, and that's one of my strengths, I think. And I think you can have as many qualifications as you want, and you can have as many badges, but I think it's all about man management. And I'm quite fortunate that in the job that I do, working with 11 to 16-year-olds, it's very, very similar transition working with 18 to 35-year-olds. Some people need an arm around them, some people need a bollocking, and that's the same of school kids. Some people really like that up close and personal touch and a well done, and some students need to say, right, you need to do it this way, and that's it. And it's a tough gig, but like I say, I don't think one fits best. You know what I mean? You've got to utilise the strengths that you have as a person, I think, and take them into your management, but also have them good people around you, because you can never be successful without people that you're afraid of. And I've always been lucky that I've had good assistant managers, good coaches around me that have always had me back, and I think that's important.
Yeah, so obviously you were saying about obviously you work in a school, and we did an interview with Ian and Duncan Richards of Penistone, and obviously they were saying that the skills of being a teacher and a football manager are very transferable. So do you find the same?
Oh, massively, yeah. Well, I mean, I don't teach. I'm head of pastoral, so I deal with behaviour. I deal with the academic progress, the attendance, and things like that. So yeah, and I think sport is, it doesn't matter if it's football, rugby, tennis, whatever. You've always got that win with the majority of students, because sports their sort of blood, isn't it? A lot of them. I wouldn't say it's all of them, but I think you gain that respect straight away. And I'm lucky. Lucky or unlucky, I work in a lovely school, Mortimer School in South Shields, which has got over 1,000 students, and South Shields are doing really well at the moment. And we've got South Shields Academy are in our school, so I always have that banter with a couple of the coaches that come into there, and a lot of the kids who go to South Shields go to Mortimer are big South Shields fans. So we have that banter already on a Monday morning, or whether Spennymoor's got beat or South Shields got beat. So yeah, I think definitely are transferable, and I think, like you said, it's I like every manager's different. I love to have a bit of a banter with the lads, and I have a laugh and a joke, and that's one thing that you sort of miss when you're not in and around, because the 3 till 5 o'clock's the sort of the worst bit, isn't it? It's either relief or you're frustrated for the weekend. But being around the lads at training, being around the lads before a game, I thoroughly enjoyed that, and that's what you miss, if you like.
Yeah. So the last bit from me in terms of on Spennymoor. Obviously, you was at the club for 14 years. You've enjoyed a healthy relationship with the chairman, with the players, with all the staff there. Have you got a message to the fans who might be watching this podcast too? Of course, I'm sure they'll miss you at this point, but yeah, have you got a message for the fans?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've been at the football club now on 30 odd years in terms of playing career and management, and 14 and a half years is a long time. And what I would say about the supporters is, that they're never the same as any supporters. When you're getting beat, they're your worst enemy, aren't they? But I've never taken it personal, and the message that I've got from the fans, I give me blood for the football club. I think when I leave the house at 6:45 in the morning to get to South Shields, and I go straight to train or straight to game. I think I've missed, in terms of the National League North, I think I missed 3 games in terms of midweek games, which I was fortunate to have good head teachers who backed me. So I think one thing that they might not agree with tactics, or they might not agree with certain people that you pick, but one thing that Spennymoor fans have always been great to me is I think they know that I've got the club at heart, and they know that I've given blood, sweat and tears for the football club, and and the messages, the amount of support I've had from the football club and the chairman and the directors and the fans who've been brilliant for me. You're always going to get the times. You always remember the bad times. I remember that one of the supporters banging on the dugout and asking what the hell was going on. And you always look back and laugh, don't you? Because they don't. You've got to, as a manager, you've got to sometimes have thick. Well, you've got to have thick skin anyway, but you've got to know that they're not being personal to you, because I'll watch Middlesbrough or Man United or whatever, and I'll pick a different team to what other people will pick. It is what it is. But the football at our level is for the supporters, and that's why it's so disappointing at the moment to see. And I understand there's a world pandemic. I get that, but it's just not the same without supporters, and especially at the level that we're at, because you say it's just eerie, and it doesn't make a good spectacle, I don't think.
Yeah. So obviously nicely leading on to obviously the pandemic at the minute and things. Obviously, it's come out when we went into the third lockdown on the 4th of January that all semi-professional divisions would be postponed. And today they were all having a meeting as to whether to null and void the season for the second season in a row. As of present, nothing's come out yet. But I was just reading a BBC Sport article from a couple of days ago. And the reason they're doing it is obviously because the government have decided that it's not going to be, the funding's now not going to be in the form of a grant, which is why the season was restarted. It's going to be in the form of loans. What's your opinion on that?
I just think that they can't have the cake and eat it, can they? I mean, they want us to be an elite level, which you've got some unbelievable clubs in this level in the National League who are full-time clubs who are probably in a better position than some of the EFL clubs. To be classed as an elite club and then not get the same benefits as what the EFL are, for me, it shouldn't happen. But again, it goes back to testing, doesn't it? It's one of them where you've got a lot of clubs now and players who catching COVID, and it just becomes farcical because there's no games getting played. There's clubs that have played 11 games, I think, in the National League North. Yet there's some clubs played 18 games, and it's just becoming ridiculous. And that's no fault of anybody's, because that's the way it is. But it's, I've been told there might be a season break where they might have 2 or 3 weeks where that'll happen. But I just feel as though until you get supporters back into these grounds, then the league, for me, you null and void the league, because, like you said, there's a lot of unpaid volunteers, a lot of payments going out to football teams and players that. And the clubs are not getting any benefit, and there'll be a lot of clubs that'll end up going bust out of this situation, no doubt about it.
Yeah, it came out about 45 minutes ago as well that clubs are being told to email the National League by tonight, and then the National League board will meet on Friday and discuss the way forward. But it looks as if this week's which weekend's fixtures might still be on, because probably might not make a decision until next Sunday. So just wasting time, really, if you look at it from that perspective.
Well, it is. I mean, it's absolutely tanking down here now, you know, and I don't know what it's like where you are, but it's absolutely tanking. You know, Darlington have played 11 games. You know, they're in the trophy last 16 or last 8, whatever it is. How they're going to fit all in games in, you know, and, you know, it just becomes, you know, unsustainable. You know, they're going to be playing Saturday, Tuesday, Thursday, or whatever it is. You know, I just don't get how you can finish the season off when they've got so many games, and that's bearing on the weather, you know, because you can imagine if there was a game today in Spennymoor, it would have been off, you know, or around this area because of flooding.
Yeah. So see, when I think was it the back end of last season, Gab, or was it the beginning of this season that we were obviously going to a lot of non-league games, like
this season? Yes,
this season. So we went to watch Penistone. Who else did we go and watch? It was
Eccles Hill,
and obviously you can see that the fans they're a major part of non-league. Well, I won't say well, kind of like your Saturday league football and things, and for them not to be there, obviously it's detrimental. So, in your opinion, obviously, because fans can't go to games, do you think the season should be null and voided, or do you think they should just take the break?
If you'd have asked me probably a month ago, I would have said null and void it. But I think, and this is probably going to be politically incorrect, I think if you're going to class us as elite, I would get every player and official vaccinated, you know, and then at least you know you're safe. You're in your own bubble with each football club. And carry on, but at the moment, I don't think that's going to happen in the near future. So, for me, I think there's only one way you can do it, and that is null and void it, and that's an absolute shame because of all the efforts that these teams have gone through. And again, but you just have to look at the Northern League. You know, Hebburn Town they're in concert. They're in a final of the Vase from last year that hasn't been played yet, but they're also playing in this league this year's FA Vase. And they're still in the, you know, and who's to say whenever that's going to get played? I just think it's very difficult, and I'm, you know, I'm over the moon football's on because, you know, it gives. I've breathed and lived it for many years. I love watching the football and the telly, the Premier League and the EFL, but even that game, you know, sometimes now when you watch it over and over, it's not the same. It's definitely the same, but it's a difficult decision, and I would hate to be in that position of having to make that decision in terms of the National League, but I think there's only one way because even last night, I think there was one game on in the National League North, and there was virtually meant to be a full fixture list in that league last night. Yeah. And I think there was Bradford played Chester, that's it. And then you probably go Saturday and they'll be the same. Someone will get, you know, be tested positive and they'll have to isolate. I mean, York City, I think, have had 4 times now. You know, it's just so inconsistent, and you know, we played and did really well at a great result, and then have to wait another 2 weeks for the next game. You know, you just can't build up any momentum. You know, it's very difficult. And that's the same as every club.
Yeah. You were understandably told the Northern Echo. Well, told Spennymoor, then it got put out on the Northern Echo. That you're going to take some time away from football after leaving Spennymoor, spend time with your family. Completely understandable. However, currently look at the league table with Guiseley, Alfreton and Black Spartans Hall. Apparently the managers are under pressure. Obviously, we don't know if it's going to be null and voided. I don't know if it's been decided, but it's going to be null and voided beneath the National League North yet. But all those managers are under pressure because obviously nobody wants to be relegated from the National League North. Are you keeping a close eye on any certain teams in the league? Obviously, you don't tell us because that'd be like...
No, I'm still affiliated with Spennymoor, you know, and I mean, I know the chairman's a big friend of mine. We've always said the two of us will sit down at the end of February and have a look. There might be a role in the club for me, you know, in terms of an ambassador or whatever. You know, the reason I left Spennymoor was again was work commitments and the time that I was spending away from school and from home. So moving from Spennymoor, which was local to me, to somewhere else just wouldn't fit for me. You know what I mean? And I've been promoted at work and, you know, I have a lot more responsibilities there. So I love watching the games. You know, I still speak to the majority of the managers in the National League North, who I still speak to on a weekly basis, and I'm in contact with Tommy every day. You know, so I like to give him his own space because I feel as though when you've been there for 14 and a half years, you know, you don't want to be stepping on his toes and being around there. I think I went to the Southport game because Liam's a friend of mine as well, the manager of Southport. So I went over to watch and have a chat with him. But you know, I've been enjoying watching it on the live streams, although it's costing me a fortune now. You know, watching away from home, gates at £7. I've asked the manager, the assistant manager, a friend of mine. I've asked him for my money back. It's costing me a fortune. So no, I'm just enjoying that time. But funny enough, as it happens, I haven't sort of missed many games because there hasn't been any.
As well, then obviously you might be looking for a new role in Spennymoor. Have you ever considered taking up like a director of football sort of role in the club?
I think if you take a director of football role, you've got to be out and about, and you've got to be watching games, under 23 games, you know, which invariably are at 2:00 in the afternoon at times, or a Saturday and Sunday, which wouldn't fit into my work commitments. So the chairman's a very, very knowledgeable bloke, and he hasn't got to where he is for the want of just being a chancer. If there comes a time at the end of February, he'll put me in a role that he feels as though will be beneficial for the football club and also my work-life balance and with my family. You know what I mean? So, you know, I'll get to the end of February and I'll have a look at it. But certainly not. You know, it's mad though, because like you say, when Spennymoor got beaten, Jason Ainsley got beat, there'll be managers knocking on the door wanting that job, and as soon as the team around here gets beat, you know, people put 2 and 2 together and say, oh, you know, get Jason in. You know what I mean? So that's the nature of the beast of being a football manager. You're only one game from the sack, and you're only as good as your last game.
Yeah, so I think the last thing from me is, obviously you've had a legendary managerial spell at Spennymoor, and obviously a good playing career in England and abroad. But if you had to pick one thing throughout your entire career that stands out to you, what is it?
Oof. Probably just seeing the enjoyment and you know, in the fans' faces, you know, when they actually come to a game, and just being on the same football field as York City, you know, and beating them away from home, doing the double over York City, you know. I mean, when you go back as long as I do at the football club, and you never dream of them things, and you know, we're competing on a real level with them, and Chester's, and you know, and Kidderminster, Darlingtons, and all. There's no one moment, but they are the great moments. Like, you know, when we played, when the fixture list came out for the National League North, and we played Stockport County at home. You know, a fantastic football club. You know, and going to Stockport Edgley Park, what a ground that is, and what a great manager Jim is, and the crowd there. But playing them in the first game of the season, and then missing a penalty, and then David Foley for us scoring to beat them in the first game. There's so many memories, you know what I mean? But like I said, just to compete where we are and to see the club evolve to where it is, and the ground. And we've got a full-time academy manager, we've got a full-time managing director, we've got full-time groundsmen. You know, 10 years ago, that you would have thought we were stupid if you thought Spennymoor Town would have something like that. So the biggest bit of pride I have is just to see where the club is at now, you know, and playing a small part into where it's got to, really.
Yeah, final for me as well. Then we ask everyone who comes to the podcast this, but obviously, I imagine through the years you've become a Spennymoor fan. But growing up, who did you actually support?
I'm a Man U fan. Fan. Yeah. So is that bad for you? Like,
well, it doesn't affect me. I'm a Bradford fan in League Two, so it doesn't affect me. But
don't affect me. I'm a Huddersfield fan. So
well, there you go. In fact, I've got my mate he's the goalkeeper coach at Huddersfield, and he's recommended a few. And I could have. Yeah, Clemo. Yeah. So funny enough, a true story here. Scotty High was available last year, and I sent Tommy Miller to watch him a few times, and he. It was hard because they wanted him to come here, but we'd had a midfield that were doing all right at the time, so I didn't want to bring somebody in at that level who wasn't going to play. And then he went out to Concord Rangers, didn't he? And then he did really well there. And he ended up at Shrewsbury. So every time I speak to Tommy Miller now, I just wind him up about Scotty High. You know what I mean? So it's they've been brilliant with Huddersfield. They've been brilliant with us, and we've got a good relationship with them as a football club. So no, but Man U, my team. And I'm lucky because the head teacher supports Man U, so I daren't say any other.
Ah, okay. Is that why you got the job at the school, or?
Yeah, probably.
That's going to bring an end to this week's episode of the Benchwarmers Podcast. As usual, I'd like to thank my co-host, Josh Sykes.
Thanks for having me on, Gab and Jason. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on and talking to us.
No, you're welcome. And anything you need off us, give us a shout, lads. But remember my name next time. That's power that.
Yeah, well, thank you, Jason Ainsley, for coming on. See you remember this time.
Care,
and we'll see you all next week. Goodbye.
Thank you very much, lads. Yeah. All the best.